Sorry. Welcome to the Unexpected Detour, where we talk honestly about the turns in life none of us planned for and the healing we find along the way. I am your host, Frances Hammond. I'm a breast cancer survivor and thriver. And today's episode might shake you a little bit. It shook me when I first started digging into it. And actually, how I really found out about this, what I'm about to talk about, is from my son, who gave me the 411 on the relationship between chemotherapy and mustard gas. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you ever sat in a chemo chair, if you're in treatment right now, or if you love someone who's going through it, you deserve the truth. Today, we're going to talk about number one, the connection between mustard gas, a chemical weapon, and some of the earliest chemo drugs. Number two, the ugly truth about a doctor who experimented on Puerto Rican patients and later helped shape cancer research. Number three, how we hold all of this as Black and Brown people, as women, as survivors, and thrivers without losing our faith or our sanity. And number four, and finally, how can you advocate for yourself in the middle of a system that hasn't always treated us right? I want you to take a deep breath. This episode is not about fear, this episode is about truth, not about fear. So let's walk through it together. One, did they really use a weapon to make chemo? Yes, they did. When you hear the word mustard gas, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's war, burnt skin, damaged lungs, images we'd rather not think about. Now imagine being told that some of the very first chemotherapy drugs, the same kind that many of us had dripping in our veins, came out of research on that same kind of chemical. It's real. It's part of the history of modern cancer treatment, but most of us were never told. So, if you'd ever wondered what exactly did they put in my body, you're not being dramatic, you're being awake. Let me break it down. The history in human language, no medical degree required. From the battlefield to the hospital. During World War I, mustard gas was used as a chemical weapon. It caused terrible blistering of the skin, eyes, and lungs. But doctors noticed something else. People who were exposed had their white blood cells wiped out. Their bone marrow, the factory where blood cells are made, was devastated. Fast forward a bit. Researchers realized this gas doesn't just burn the outside, it attacks fast growing cells, especially in the blood and immune system. And guess what? Cancer cells love to do that. Grow fast, ignore boundaries, like people, and multiply. Scientists began asking a hard question. What if we could take this destructive power and turn it against cancer instead of people? They started creating modified chemicals related to mustard gas called nitrogen mustards. These weren't the exact same substance as the weapon, but they share the same basic idea. They damage DNA and fast dividing cells. When they tested these drugs on people with diseases like lymphoma, tumors started to shrink. For the first time, doctors saw cancer cells being knocked back by a drug. That moment is often called the birth of modern chemotherapy. Now, do I like this story started on the battlefield? No, but this is the truth. Something that was once used to destroy human beings was studied, reshaped, and forced to fight cancer instead. And that's only half of the story. Because the question you're probably asking is, okay, but what about the people they experimented on? It ever got to us. Before it got to us, sorry. So we're going to go there. The Puerto Rican story, they never told us. We cannot talk about chemo and mustard gas without talking about who was used and abused along the way. One of the names that come up in this history is Dr. Cornelius Rhoads. In the early 1930s, Rhoads went to Puerto Rico with the Rockefeller Foundation. On paper, he was there to study anemia and other blood disorders. In reality, the patients he saw, mostly poor Puerto Rican men and women, were being treated like test subjects, not like full human beings. That should sound familiar to a lot of us, especially us Black people who were tested, the Tuskegee Airmen, a lot of things. They would use us as guinea pigs for, but that's another story. He wrote letters to colleagues calling Puerto Rican patients experimental animals. Sounds familiar, huh? Not children of God, not people with families and dreams, just bodies to poke and prod and use. Then came the worst part. In 1931, Rhoads wrote a private letter where he bragged, hear me? Bragged that he had killed patients and injected others with cancer cells. He described Puerto Ricans in deeply racist language and talked like their lives were disposable. Sounds all familiar. Just a different country, Puerto Rico, which is really part of the United States, but we've seen it here, right here. A lab worker found that letter and brought it to Puerto Rican leader Pedro Abdullah Campos, I hope I said his name right, who exposed it to the public. The island was outraged. People marched. They demanded justice. When Rose was confronted, he claimed it was all a joke, just something he wrote in anger. Official investigations at the time said they couldn't prove he actually did what he wrote. But here's the thing. The letter was real. The racism was real. The way he talked about Puerto Rican patients as far as their lives were nothing, that was real. And instead of being stripped of his power, his career kept rising. He later went on to work with the U.S. Army Chemical Warfare Service. During World War II, observing mustard gas research, including experiments on soldiers, some of them Black, some Puerto Rican, who weren't always told the full truth. And from that same mustard gas research, he helped to develop one of the first chemo drugs. So when we say chemo and mustard gas, what they never told us, we are talking about colonialism, racism, poor and brown bodies being used as data. If you are Puerto Rican, if you're Black, if you're from any community that has been experimented on, or lied to, your mistrust of the medical system is not paranoia. It has a paper trail. And still, many of us found ourselves in that chemo chair, rolling up our sleeves, saying yes to treatment that came out of a history that did not always honor humanity. That tension is real, and we're going to sit with it. What chemo actually does to the body? Let's bring this out of the history books and back into the infusion room. When you're hooked up to that IV, chemo doesn't whisper politely to your body. It doesn't say, "Excuse me, I like to speak only to the tumor." Chemo's main job is to attack fast growing cells. Cancer cells grow fast and wild, ignoring all the stop signs in the body. But some healthy cells grow fast too. Your bone marrow makes new blood cells. Your hair follicles are busy growing hair. The lining of your mouth and gut are constantly renewing. So when chemo goes in, it travels through your bloodstream, it enters cells, it damages DNA or blocks the cell's ability to divide. It hits anything that's fast growing, and that includes both cancer and certain healthy tissues. That's why we see tumors shrinking, scans improving, and at the same time, hair falling out, nausea, diarrhea, mouth sores, fatigue so deep you feel like you're made of cement. Low white blood cells making you more vulnerable to infection. Same weapon, different targets. Now I want to be clear. Not every drug used today in cancer treatment is connected to mustard gas. Some medicines are derived from plants. Some are targeted therapies that go after specific proteins. Some are immunotherapies that wake up the immune system and help fight. Treatment has evolved, but for many of us, especially those who receive traditional chemo regimens, our healing walked through the doorway that mustard gas opened. That's just the truth. Holding rage, gratitude, and faith all at once. So, where does that leave us? For me, it leaves me in a very human, very holy tension. On one hand, I could say, I hate what chemo did to my body. I hate that medicine has had has a history of using black and brown bodies as experiments instead of partners. And at the exact same time, I can say, I thank God I'm here still. I thank God for the doctors and nurses who cared, the researchers who turned something evil into something that could help me live. Both are true, both can live in the same heart. If you ever felt angry at your treatment, if you ever felt betrayed by the system, and then felt guilty for feeling that way, because you're supposed to just be grateful, I want you to let that guilt go. Today, you can. Grieve. Grieve what was taken. Be furious about the racism and the abuse that build parts of this system. And still celebrate the fact that you are alive, breathing, healing, telling your story. That's not being ungrateful. That's being honest. And I believe God honors honesty. Advocacy is important. How to walk into the clinic with eyes open. So let's talk about what you can do with all of this. If you are in treatment now or walking along someone who is, here are some powerful questions you're allowed to ask your oncologist, your nurse, and your medical team. And trust you me, I had a lot of questions. Number one, what exact drugs am I receiving and how do they work? Not just the nickname. Ask what class of drugs they are and what do they do to the cells. Number two, are there targeted therapies, hormone therapies, or immunotherapies involved in my plan? Understanding your regimen helps you make informed decisions. Number three, what are the most common short term side effects and what can we do to manage them? You deserve a plan, not just a warning. Number four, what long term side effects should I be aware of? Because survivorship is not just ring the bell and go home. Survivorship is its own detour. Trust me, I know. Number five, who can I talk to about emotional and spiritual impact of this treatment? That might be a social worker, a counselor, a chaplain, a support group, or a trusted friend. Bring a notebook. Bring another set of ears. Bring your questions in writing if you have to. You are not difficult for wanting answers. You're protecting the life God gave you. And if a provider makes you feel small for asking, that tells you more about them than it does about you. You have a right to understand, be respected, say, I need that explained again, and say, I want to be part of this decision, not just a signature on a form. For survivors, thrivers looking back, for those of you who are on the other side of treatment or in the long hallway of follow-up scans and blood work, I want you to I want to invite you to reflect on this. What did chemo take from me and what did it give me that I never expected? Maybe it took your hair, your energy, some of your confidence, your sense that your body was always safe. But maybe it also gave you a new understanding of your strength, a deeper relationship with God, a louder voice of advocacy, a heart that feels other people's pain more deeply. None of this gifts makes the suffering okay, but they remind you that suffering did not get the last word, you did. From weapon to witness. As we close this episode, I want you to picture something with me. Imagine mustard gas on the battlefield, designed to break the body and spirit. Now imagine that same line of chemistry, dragged into a lab, broken apart, studied, reshaped, and placed in a chemo bag with one assignment. You will no longer serve death. You will serve life. It's still rough. It's still imperfect. It still hurts. But here you are. You are not that weapon. You are the witness. You are the proof that something born in destruction can be forced by science, by advocacy, by the grace of God to fight for the survival instead of against it. Your existence right now, listening to this, is a testimony. Thank you for being here with me today on the Unexpected Detour for this episode, Chemo and Mustard Gas, What They Never Told You. If this opened your eyes, if it helped you understand your treatment a little better, or gave language or feelings you've been holding in your chest, share it with someone. A woman in the chemo chair, a daughter, a caregiver, a partner, a survivor or a thriver still trying to make peace with what happened. And if you haven't already, follow and subscribe to the Unexpected Detour so you don't miss future episodes on breast cancer, education, advocacy, and the real life detours we never saw coming. And if you feel led, leave a review. Let me know what part of this episode spoke to you. Your voice helps this podcast reach more people who need it. Remember, you are not what was done to your body. You are not the poison. You are the purpose that survived it. I'm Frances Hammond, and this has been the Unexpected Detour. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself and of yourself. You are still here for a purpose. And with that, I will see you back tomorrow, where we will go and talk about the legacy of the thrivers. Have a good night.